Good afternoon, everyone. Before I outline some important information, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country, and I also just want to thank Nigel for this morning's welcome to country with the committee members out at Mystery Bay. That was quite profound and quite impressive. I want to also acknowledge the people of the Yuin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. I also acknowledge and pay my respects to Aboriginal people joining us today. Welcome everyone to this important community roundtable for the Cultural Fishing Inquiry. Our inquiry is examining how the lack of provisions in legislation for Aboriginal cultural fishing is having an impact on Aboriginal communities in New South Wales. Today, instead of a strict public hearing format, we'll be having more of a roundtable conversation with invited participants from the Aboriginal community here on the South Coast. I want to thank everyone for making the time to come along today to provide information to this important inquiry, and I also want to thank people for making their submissions to the inquiry as well. That's been quite valuable for the committee members. Before we get started, I would like to make some brief comments about the procedures for today's roundtable. Like any of our standard hearings, today's meeting is being recorded and broadcast live via the Parliament's website. There's a little camera in the middle here that'll swing around as people talk and everything else. You'll see this set up as we go. It's important for transparency and helps anyone interested in the inquiry to follow along. And I know there are some people who are actually watching this via the stream today. We have representatives from Hansard here with us today, over here on my right. They are responsible for producing the transcript, which records and puts into writing all of the conversations today between the participants and committee members. And this will be placed on the committee's website when it is ready. I know they will probably come chasing people for the spelling of words as we go through the day, so don't be too unsettled by that. They just want to make sure they get it right. It's the role of Hansard. So they will come and talk to you if there's something they didn't hear properly or they want to clarify a spelling. If there is any media present today, and I think there are, yes, Vanessa's just walking around over there, please be aware that in accordance with the broadcasting guidelines, media representatives must take responsibility for what is published about the committee's proceedings. In the course of our conversation today, it is important to avoid making adverse comments about others, particularly individuals, and please avoid using people's names and try to keep comments more generalised if that's possible. If you are unable to answer a question and you want more time to respond, you can say that you want to take that question on notice, and the committee secretariat will talk to you about getting information to the committee after the roundtable's finished. The secretariat, who you have been liaising with in the lead up to today, will then follow up with you and get about getting the responses. Finally, could everyone please turn off their mobile phones, or at least put them on silent? And the chair will do that because I'm a habitual offender. Let's now turn to introductions. I think it would be really helpful if we all went around the room and introduced ourselves, including the members of the Parliamentary Committee here today. So that if everyone could state, and what we would do is we go around, if everyone could state their name and advise if they are here representing an organisation, that would be great. For our community representatives, please feel free to also make a short introduction statement. This might be a good opportunity to share a little about yourself or to emphasise a couple of key points you want to make later on in the day. And then after the introductions, we'll start our round table. So there's no need for a long introductory comment, just who you are, who you represent, and maybe just a little brief introductory comment to start with. And to make sure everyone in the room can hear, I'll remind both committee members and participants to speak into the microphones. And I think that's pretty much all I have to do here. So I'll start by introducing myself. So I'm Mick Veach. I'm from Tumut. I'm a member of the Labor Party on this committee. I'm the acting chair today because the chair, Shooters, Fishers, Farmers Party representative Mark Banasiak, is unavailable. So Mark's the normal chair, and the committee members have decided that they will vest chairing responsibilities with me. So I hope that all goes well. The interest in this committee for me, I actually moved the motion to establish this committee, and it's around, I just couldn't believe that 21AA had not yet commenced, and so I wanted to get people's, and I'd started receiving emails from people about the impact of that not occurring, not being commenced. the impact on cultural fishing and on communities up and down the coast. So I'm here really to hear your stories today, and I'll try and guide this as best we can. And so, not to throw anyone under the bus, but I think I'll go around to the left and we'll go around this way. So if we could start with Douglas.
G'day, my name's Douglas Seymour born in Maruya, reared at Bommo, but here on behalf of the family to speak about getting back what's rightfully ours and for the next generations, and that's about me.
Thank you.
Hi, is it on? Yep. Hi, I'm Kayleen Brown. I'm the CEO at Katungal Aboriginal Corporation Regional Health and Community Services, and I also hold traditional blood ties from Wollongong down to Narooma.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor Martin. I'm a Liberal Party member of the Upper House. I cover the Central Coast and the Hunter for the Liberal Party, for the government, and I'm very pleased to be here today and honoured to hear from you all, and thank you so much for taking the time. It's a pleasure to hear from you today, so thank you again.
Hi, my name's Danny Chapman. My introduction is going to be a little bit complicated because I wear several hats in relation to this matter. First is I'm a community member. I was growing up here on Yuan country, part of the Walbunja clan, and I'm also the elected representative on the South Coast for the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council. I'm also the chair of the Aboriginal Land Council, New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council. I'm also a member of our fishing rights group. And to complicate it even further, I'm also the former member of the Aboriginal Fishing Advisory Council from the beginning till last year. And I think I've got a couple of more hats in amongst all that stuff, but we'll leave it at that at the moment. What my intervention in this committee's meeting will be on at a community level, and I will further have an intervention in Sydney at later hearings on this committee for the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council. So that pretty much complicates that, and if I tied anyone up, I apologise. Thanks.
You did very well, thank you. I don't know how you wear all those hats and know which one you got on. That's impressive. John?
Hello, my name's John Riley. I'm a commercial fisherman, and I've been at this game since I was 12 years old, working with Dolpholler, and I have a very lot of experience with Fisheries Department. I've been on MACs, I've been on advisory councils, I've been on safe food, and there's a lot of other issues that I've been on in fisheries. And I've seen a lot, and I over the years I have a very lot of experience in what goes on with policy making and the deceits and the good things that's come out of fisheries. So that's who I am. I'm John Briley.
Okay, John, thank you.
I'm Keith and I represent the Mogo Lands Council in the Mogo area. I've lived there all my life. I have had consultations with fisheries pretty well all my life. Been to jail, fisheries matters, which I believe is our resource and our culture to do. That's about it. And I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen here with the outcome of this case, this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my name's Peter Primrose. I'm also, like my other colleagues, a member of the Upper House. I've got a simple task, and that's today to listen and to hear what people here have got to say. I think, like the rest of us, we're sorry for all of these bits and pieces and the way all the electronic cameras and recordings, but it's the simplest way and the best way we know in the short time we have to make sure that we accurately record everything you say, that it's very public and it can be used as evidence by us in our report, so it's as public as we can possibly make it. So apologise for all of the technology, but we genuinely hear, and I certainly know on my own behalf, to listen and to hear what people have to say.
Thank you, Peter. Robert?
G'day everybody. My name's Robert Chewing. I'm a proud Wabudja man, and I also am part of the native title claim. I actually operate the New South Wales Aboriginal Fishing Rights Group web page as an administrator, and I'm very passionate about the situations that have happened down on the coast, and our objective is to explain this story so that everybody is very aware of what is actually happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Wayne?
Good afternoon. My name's Wayne Carberry, and I represent myself and my Walbunja people. And today, this open discussion, is based on, being able to shed a bit of light on, in a little bit more detail, the ins and outs that the general public are not aware of. But I'm very proud to say that I'm happy to be here and be part of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Peter?
Good afternoon. My name's Peter Poulos. I'm also a member of this committee. I'm a member of the Liberal Party, and I'm part of the government. In my role as a member of the government, I look after the Illawarra, and I'm particularly interested in hearing in your own words what this inquiry means to you and your community, and what are your suggestions so we can explore ways of improving the circumstances that you and your communities find yourselves in.
Thank you. Andrew?
My name is Andrew Nye. I was born in Batemans Bay in 1950. I am a Walbunja man. I am also a commercial fisherman, and I've got issues with rules and regulations that we don't have a say in, and I was born a fisherman, I'll die a fisherman.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Kevin?
My name is Kevin Mason. I was born and bred at Nowra. I'm a proud Yuin Nation person, and I'm just sitting in today to find out what's really going to happen in this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, what we'll do now, I think I'm going to go around the room again, but this time you'll have a bit more time just to explain in your own words, I think the community want to know what is cultural fishing, as you would want us to understand it, and then what's been happening. What are your stories about what is happening right now that we can, as Peter, I think both Peter said, that we can take away and try and make some sense of, and try to help in some way to fix. So again, I'm going to go back around the room again. If you can sort of up to about 5 minutes, and then after that process, I'll allow them, the committee members will have some questions, and I'll start posing some questions to people so we can, because we're already writing down notes. So if that makes sense, so about 5 minutes or thereabouts. Start with Douglas, and we'll go back around the room again.
Too easy, thanks for that. With myself, I'm, as I said, reared at Bomaderry, born at Maruya, third generation sawmill worker, but all my life, none and pop were at Kayanga Creek, so I was brought up on the flats down here, hunting, gathering, all shellfish, whatever. Up and down the coast from Giroa down to Mystery Bay, diving in places, watching uncles, grandparents, all the mob diving, and all in all, as a young fella, you learn from watching all that. At the moment, I've got 3 daughters, got 4 grannies, had to run and battle with fisheries all my life, like many of us here. And without the right rights, how can we teach the next generation to do it when they're all going to get in trouble? We've been in trouble, and we haven't got the right to do it. So my argument is getting the rights back for the kids before it's all gone, and all of us having a say in it. That's about me in a nutshell. I'll keep it brief, but thanks for listening.
No, thanks, Douglas.
Thank you. I've prepared something, so that's okay. So like I mentioned, I'm the CEO at Katungo. If you're not aware, that's the health and medical peak body for the far south coast. So I'll just get into it. I often think what legacy I will leave my children. what future and place my culture has in this world. I come from the direct bloodline of Aboriginal South Coast matriarchs, my mothers, my grandmothers before me, connected to Gardu, our salt water, and have always fished to provide for our families and young. The South Coast and far South Coast Aboriginal people have long been gifted by our ancestors and Creator access to resources of the land and sea to sustain our ways of life, for this has always been and always will be. Bagging limits have no place within our cultural framework, for we are one with the land and the land is one with us. Imagine our communities are thriving, people and families are healthy and well. No one goes hungry, communities are fed, happy, resourced and sustainable. This has been our existence for over 100,000 years. Our customary law provides us with the authority to harvest and consume our traditional foods, as well as commercially trade our resources, creating economic benefits and advancements for our people, which contributed to the prosperous health of our community's kinship and practice. Access to seafood is a fundamental element of our cultural practices through sharing, trade and kinship. We have the oldest oral histories worldwide, where narrative of our practice is embedded in cultural connection, well-being, healing and our responsibility to care for country. Cultural fishing is a core foundation of health and well-being for the South Coast and far South Coast people, whether through language, kinship, connection to country or staple diet and regular exercise, and creates vital social cohesion amongst our people. We have never had issues with sustainability of resources for over 100,000 years. As of 2022, we have seen a decline from our inability to maintain our cultural practices and manage our country our way and on our terms. The absence of power, authority and autonomy for our people is limited in both federal and state legislation, which continues to disempower, dismantle and contradict at its core our ability as people to govern ourselves. Self-determination of Aboriginal people can only become a reality where the controls in which Aboriginal people, customs and culture are managed and vested in the Aboriginal people themselves. The Australia State of Environment Report 2021 undeniably recognises Aboriginal people as the subject matter experts in managing and caring for country and articulates a demonstrated connection to health and wellbeing outcomes for Aboriginal people. It is clear from this report, failed policy and legislation within Australia has led us to the brink of the most significant environmental crisis our country has faced in human history, directly impacting the health and wellbeing of my people. Our people continue to have the poorest health outcomes worldwide, directly resulting from inability to practice our culture in a world that treats us absent. We have seen surging illness through our communities with unmatched chronic disease, comorbidities, mental health, drug and alcohol, and long-term disability impacts stemming from denial of access to staple, traditional diets and ability to maintain cultural practices, all falling on the medical services to bridge the gap in what is a Band-Aid solution. For too long, our people have been scared and threatened to continue to share and practice their culture with their families and provide for their communities, all at the expense of excessive fines, prosecution and criminal proceedings. The advancement of our people spiritually, physically and economically continues to be at the expense of pride and greed. There is well-documented evidence that when and only when Aboriginal people manage their own affairs will we truly see thriving sea life, environments, communities and people on these lands and seas. The South Coast and far South Coast people deserve self-determination to advocate and manage their health and well-being through their cultural practices. We have long lived in a framework never designed for us, and for that we have unprecedented health issues that are not on the decline. So I conclude today with some questions this inquiry needs to address as you consider the impacts of this legislation on the health and well-being of my people, our communities and our existence. My people are dying prematurely due to inaction. When will government hear our voices and acknowledge our place in this world? The future of my people and children rests in your hands. When will we stop treating the symptoms and address the cause? What will we tell our grandchildren? We should have done more? What will be your legacy?
Thank you. Kayleen, pretty powerful words there. I know you just read from a prepared statement. You already give them a copy? Oh, you're ahead of the game. Well done. Thank you very much. Thank you. Your turn, Danny. Away you go.
Way I go. Look, thanks very much for taking the time to come down and listen to us. We really appreciate this. The first thing that we need to say to you, or I need to say, and that is that our people have never ceded this country. We have never entered into a treaty. We've never entered into any other negotiations that would suggest even to cede this country. Over many years, government actions has slowly eroded and taken away our culture and our reliability on our culture. The only thing that remains at the moment is our fishing rights, and we will not give them up. We will not take one more backward step in this. And as you will hear from evidence around this table, you will find there are people here that has felt the force of the law, and you will hear of people that's gone to jail for their beliefs. And you will also hear that our fishing rights really don't belong to anyone that sits around the table. We hold it for a little while, and then that's passed on to our children and their children. And as a result of that, we have a cultural obligation to pass on our teachings to make sure that the judgments that's coming up behind us, sorry about that, I'm going to have to spell that and I probably won't be able to, but that's our children that's coming up behind us. We have a cultural right and an obligation to teach them people how we live and how it is to be black, to make sure that we don't lose our identity and our connection to country, which is absolutely important to us. And through government actions such as the non-commencement of Section 21AA, that takes away our ability to teach. Because at the moment, the Fisheries Management Act has really only one way to deal with Aboriginal fishing, and that's prosecution. They manage blackfellas through prosecution. They use the court to manage us so that they can manage their fishing stocks. Now that's wrong. Absolutely wrong. In 2009, we lobbied the outgoing Labor government at the time, and we said to the minister, look, you know, we really need to amend the Fisheries Management Act in order to have an Aboriginal fisheries inserted into that act so that we could get protection of our people. The minister said to me and others at the time, he said, look, you know, we're going into election pretty much soon, and governments normally go into a period of time where they're unable to or unwilling to legislate. But if you can go over to the next door and talk to the Liberal Party and tell them what you want, and you get an agreement with them, then you know, we'll certainly have a look at legislating it. And that's exactly what happened, and that's exactly what was done. The amendments to the Fisheries Management Act was done in 2009. I think it was in September of 2009. And there was only one person that spoke against, or not even against it, but spoke in Parliament in relation to that amendment to the Fisheries Management Act, and that was Andrew Constant, who was the member for down here on the South Coast. And his complaint was that there hadn't been enough consultation around this, despite the fact that we've gone through about 30 years of prosecution, and you know, the only engagement that we've had with fisheries is through compliance officers and through the court processes and stuff like that. Now, governments have known for many years of our fishing rights. And if people wouldn't mind, there's two very important people that I'd like to quote in amongst this stuff. And I've just got them on my phone. I couldn't get near the office to print them out this morning. On February 1979, Uncle Percy Mumble gave the following evidence to a select committee. That's the New South Wales Parliament Select Committee. Uncle Percy Mumble would have been around about 60 or probably 70 at the time. He said, "Fishing is a big industry, and we want the full rights to fish anywhere in the whole of this country, in any waters in Australia. We do not want someone coming along and telling us what we cannot fish here because we do not have a licence. Why do we have to have a licence to go and kill a few little fish? How we are going to catch the fish if someone says he will take us to court and put us in jail for trespassing on our own waters? We do not want that at all. If there is anything to get out of that water, we want to get it. And if we want to sell it, we shall be able to sell it. We do not want anyone coming here to say that we cannot do that because we are trespassing. Why should the white man come down here to fish? He does not own this fish." That was Uncle Percy Mumbler, who probably everyone knows around the place here is a beautiful old man. And then another elder, a prominent elder from down here, was Gabu Ted Thomas. And he said the white people first come to Australia. They took all the land with dreadful consequences to our people. Even though there was plenty of land for everyone, they took the lot. They did so without attempting to make any treaties with our people. In this respect, the Australian Aboriginals are unique. They are the only Indigenous people in part of the world with whom the colonisation power has made no treaty. It is our hope that we can get back just a little of what they have taken from us. So they, I've got a few more there, but there's a bit of time constraint here, so I'll just take that because they are two pretty powerful comments from two very prominent Aboriginal people here on the South Coast and very well respected. And they are saying that they're actually mentored nearly all of us around here to tell us this is our stand. We cannot take a backward step, and we must maintain our strength in amongst all this stuff. Now, as I mentioned before, the only way Fisheries have attempted to manage Aboriginal fisheries down here on the South Coast, and they're still trying to do it, they manage it through prosecutions, through compliances. Just recently, I'll try and cut my presentation as short as I can, because I know I've taken up a lot of time. Just recently, there's been, revelation in a place called Closing the Gap. And we have a body of Aboriginal people that represents us in the Closing the Gap thing. They call it a capo. They have been told, or Fisheries have told these people, that while this inquiry is going on, they're going to place a moratorium on prosecutions, and they are going to not chase people around the rocks and give them court attendance notices. And they are also reviewing the prosecutions that they've currently got in the pipeline. And a few other things which I've forgotten about. But just in terms of the prosecution, I've had a lawyer ring me up at the beginning of this week that said they've got 3 new clients that's currently being had court attendance notice put before them, and they're going to court. Now, I don't like to call anyone liars or misrepresenting the truth or anything like that, but so I'll leave that to others to reach a conclusion on that. They have also said, publicly and in government venues within Parliament, I think they call it estimates committees. Fisheries have also told them that they're reviewing fisheries. I urge this committee to seek evidence. It's all right for fisheries to get up there and announce certain actions that they're doing. This committee needs to be told and showed evidence of what they're doing. If they're reviewing Aboriginal people from being prosecuted and they're going to place a moratorium on that, where's the evidence? And I'll put it another way, these people, they'll get up there, and I'm not too sure if I'm allowed to say what I'm going to say, but I'll say it anyway. These people will get up there and say anything that they have just to blow smoke up your ass so that you can't see the true facts. So that you can say, rest on your laurels and get back and say, oh, okay, yeah, we're doing a review on that. In 12 months' time, you'll be able to do the same thing. Oh, don't worry about that, they're doing a review. How long does it take to be a review? How many people have got to be prosecuted? How many people have got to go through 2 years of pain and misery? How many times have these people, families have got to carry these people? How many times, as Katungal have said, they have to pick up the pieces of the health problems, the stress. No. Now we've just, in order to try and not take a backward step in this, there's been a few, not a few, all of us in this room and beyond have all tried to consolidate our efforts and all that stuff. We have got a fairly good bunch of people involved in this, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, that's helped us take a stand. We've got pro bono lawyers, we've got anthropologists, we've got historians, we've got academics. We've got a whole group of people here that put all of our energies and efforts together to try and stop fisheries from prosecuting our people. Now, I don't want to take Kevin Mason, Phantom's testimony away from us, but it's important that we say this to you, that this beautiful old man sitting over in the corner has been prosecuted around about 6 times for his diving offences. Since our Fish and Rights group have got together and has provided pro bono lawyers to represent him, on his first case, we put together, a pretty good solid case against Fisheries for prosecuting him for abalone and all the other things that he's been attempted to be prosecuted with. They drug him to court right up for 2 years, right up to the point where they were going to walk in the door of the courthouse and have the case heard. Fisheries dropped the case. Crown Solicitor's instructions was to drop the case. About a year later, Fisheries caught him out diving again and they laid the same charges on him. We went through the same processes, went to court 2 years' time, and what it's done to him and his family is massive. Went right up to the courthouse again, and they dropped the case again. 2 months after that, they caught him out fishing again, and we've got video evidence of it where fisheries officers has jumped in, he's getting out of the water, and they come running down the hill and chasing him in, and he run back into the water saying, you know, I've got native title rights and don't take my food from me, and we've got video evidence of that, which I'll present to you in Sydney. And they got him in a headlock and, you know, and roughed him up. And they then attempted to prosecute him again. So he went through the same processes again. They've again dropped the abalone charges, the fishing charges and all that stuff, and all that remains at the moment is they're charging him with assault. Now, you know, that sort of thing can't stand. Now, look, I don't know what you make of that, but that is harassment. That is harassment. And, you know, and most of the people around here will tell you that it's harassment as well, and that this is how people are being treated. You know, it's just unfair and it's unjust and it's it's everything. Now, I'll just cut this short a little bit. As I said before, the Fisheries Management Act was amended in 2009, in September of 2009, and Section 21AA is yet to be commenced. Section 21AA, if commenced without regulations, will protect Aboriginal people from fishing. What we've also said to government was that, if at any time that an Aboriginal fisheries would place any species and all that stuff in jeopardy, if there's environmental issues that we need to talk about to protect the species, then we will sit down to the table with all the stakeholders as a genuine partner to try and resolve these issues. So there's real no reason why this can't be done, why it shouldn't be done. Now, I've got a question for the committee, and I've got a question for the whole of New South Wales Parliament. And the question is this: do you know of any piece of legislation that has gone through Parliament, gone through the lower house of New South Wales Parliament, gone through the upper house of the New South Wales Parliament, has been assented by the Governor and sat on the table of the government in order for them to enact for over 10 years? And stop people being dragged into court, tearing our families, our culture and all of our stuff to pieces. That's the challenge I put before you. Do you know that? And when you come to that conclusion, what is the reasoning behind all that? Why are you doing this? I'll end my intervention there at the moment, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you very much. John?
Well, I've got a bit of a story the same as like Danny. The thing of it is, my great-great-grandfather was a whaler. Now, I am a descendant from the Thara people of Tupole Bay. We have been wiped out to one last man, and that was my great-great-grandfather. Now, he was a whaler, and his father, his son, and that was my grandfather, and that, and he was a fisherman, and my father was a fisherman, and as we came up the rank, now I'm a fisherman, and I have two sons. I have a son that's a fisherman, and he has two sons that want to be fishermen. And this goes to my claw is that when growing up, we was allowed to collect or say fish for any species of fish that we want. Now we looked after the resources, We call it mullet season, salmon season, and lobsters and abalone, and we versified in prawns, a whole lot of lake fishing, and that we versified in the industry. And as the years went past, like in 1932, Fisheries came along and they said, you must get a licence. And my grandfather said to me, no, we don't have to have a licence because we are original people of this country and we don't have to have a licence. Anyway, my grandmother at that time, and he said, "Oh, what's the difference to this to get a licence?" He said, "It's only 1 shilling, right?" And that is how we got a fishing licence, and we got that fishing licence for our people, my father, my grandfather, and me uncle, and that carried us on. As we grew older and older and everything, they went to fishing and that. But what it done to us was that it made us realise that we never got harassed because we got that fishing licence, right? But if we didn't have that fishing licence and we stood there and we fought every fisheries officer come along, we would have been harassed more times than any other of these guys here. But we made an industry out of what we've done, and right up to the day, that industry, we run in difficulties like quotas and closures, weekend closures, all these things that was put onto us, and the lies that they've said. They broke up our industries like beach hauling. They broke it up into different categories like garfish hauling, garfish and that, and they put quotas on all this here. Now, I did not accept any of this, and I still don't accept any of it. And I told Fisheries, I said, I don't accept it, because under the law, it's not law until you accept it. And as they went on, they brought in this thing called what do you call it? You got to log in and log off on the fisheries, and I said, there's no way that I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be like my ancestors, like my grandfather and that, who have to have a permit to come to town. Because this is what is going back. This is what they're trying to do. Bring us back into the Stone Age where they brought us down to being a second-class citizen. Now, I'm not a second-class citizen. I'm a First Nation man, right? I own this country. And if you don't think that I don't own this, then the proof is not for me to provide. The proof to provide is up to you guys to prove that I am not. Now, that evidence is there in your documentary. You've got to find that, not me. I don't have to prove it because I know who I am. You've been here for 250 odd years. We've been here for 65,000 years plus. They still finding evidence where we're still going. Now, go back again, you have a look at Christopher Columbus, right? Now, you must know your history. Christopher Columbus, every nation in the world, England, especially England, they said that if you come to the edge of the thing, you'll fall off or a monster will eat you. He proved that the earth wasn't flat. Now, how could a country say that they own Australia when they didn't even know about Australia? The Dutch was here before them. The Chinese was here before them. They came and visited and traded, and that's documented. They came here, they seen the resources that was here, the seals, the whales, and then they found out the land was valuable for growing their wheat and putting sheep and cattle. And what'd they do? They raped and pillaged us, right? The stocks and everything, like the seals, the fishing, still being done. And us poor fellas, we lost virtually everything that that we tried to do. Now, as a government that was introduced to Australia, it said there that we will provide, well, we look after the people of Australia. Now, in your constitution, we was provided in that constitution because the molefellas who writ up that constitution knew that we own this country, and they made provisions in that constitution for us, right? We had the same right back then as you guys got today, but yet we are a second-class citizen. The people that is brought over by boats, who's trying to flee from other countries, come into this country, they have more rights than us. They come here and they provided houses, they provided monies, jobs, and what have we got? We got to fight every inch of the way to even access our own resource. Now, going back to government, right, I've been on benches, Safe Food, CFACT, the new policy making, people like SARC, that's the Reform Committee. I've asked them, Andrew and I was there. We asked the same questions. Is there any provisions in this here for us Aboriginal people? Yes, the government's all provided that. And what is it? None. Nothing. We were screwed like anybody else. We haven't even, like Sam would say, our quota system, we cannot make a living. Given us X amount of days a year, right? You're allowed to work 365 days if you want to work that much. We, as a fisherman, we're on quota of 76 days, 100 and something days. Prawning, we got to have a permit to go prawning. A Section 37 permit to get prawning. Because we refused to buy more quota. The resource belongs to us. Now, like I said, if you don't think that we don't own it, then show us the evidence where you acquired it from us. Because we don't have to prove, I'm saying, we do not have to prove that we are the original people, right? And we don't have to buy nothing because it's already ours. You show us the evidence where you acquired this country from us, and then we'll sit down and do your bidding. And another thing, that 211, that should have been activated, and there's the one thing in it that's got to be there. It's a fish to be sold. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. I just note I was remiss not to mention the local member for Bega is here, Dr. Michael Holland, who's up the back. So welcome to the hearing, Michael. Keith.
They pretty well tied it all up at the moment, but I'm in the process of a 5-year, 8 months court battle. 2017, on the 20th of January, I got caught, and it's been taken 5 years and 8 months, and I get sentenced next month on the 4th. And during that court battle that I am involved in, the judge finds me that I have a cultural right. Do we all believe I have a cultural right in this office, in this place here, our ministers? Have I, as an Aboriginal man of this country, have a cultural right? Have I got a cultural right? If I have, how can a judge say to me, I have a cultural right, but he still wants to put a ban on me? How does he know I'm a cultural? How does he know about my culture when he is not an Aboriginal man? And I also, in my court battle, I have been classed as a danger to the ocean by swimming in it with a pair of flippers and one mask and one snorkel and an abine. I have been, in my evidence from the DPI, the Crown Prosecutor from DPI has classed me as a threat to the ocean. One black man swimming in one little ocean. How is that possible? How is it? How is that possible? One black man. Let's put two black men. Kevin, is he a threat to the ocean? Obviously he must have been, because he got tackled by the fisheries. You know, 72-year-old man getting arrested like that. It's shocking. 250 years has been here for. 250 years. Ain't it about time change? I fought in 2020 when the fire came through. Myself and two of my boys fought to protect our house, our street. I had no shoes on, I had a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and a guard nose. That's all I had on me. My two boys were the same. We fought that, and we used our practice, our cultural practice, to beat that fire. And if we wouldn't have that experience, not that we were bushfire professionals, but it was our cultural practice, how to challenge, how to deal with something when it appeared at the time. And we were successful. But if we would not have broken the white man's law, the white man's LAW, we would not have had a house, we would have had no street. The whole lot of our street would have burned to the ground. But we used our knowledge on the 2020 bushfires. And I don't know how many people faced a fucking fire like that. Something like about a 200-foot fucking flame coming towards you. And you've got a garden hose in your hand. How do you tackle it? What would you do? What would our governments do in a situation like that? This happened because of the government's putting protocols upon our culture, telling us to do this and do that. Mother Earth owns us, and we have got to protect her. But I'm sorry to say, since colonisation 250 years ago, 252 years ago, has never really given us a chance. Really give us a chance. All this was done is put them brick walls up in front of us. When is it going to fucking be brought down? When? We've got the LAW, we've got the Court of Law in Liverpool. I'll go back to the 4th of next month. Now, I'm already found guilty. I'm already guilty of practicing my culture. And the Court of Law does not see me able to share my monetary or them sharing their culture and their food source for swapping for money. We call it bartering, one way or the other. When is the government going to fucking realise? We have a culture, we have a place in this country. We have a duty of care. We have, as an Indigenous people of this country. Not the government. The government does not see that. Since 1901, when the first Parliament was formed, our first government, I myself has faced 20 governments in my 65 years of life. And not one thing has changed to benefit me. So therefore, I'll end my story like that. I have got no faith in the court because they are racist. I have got no faith in the LAW. The reason why that is, why should I have faith when I know of many of us being kicked in the guts? Get where you fucking belong. That's what the fucking LAW has been doing to us for a long time. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Robert?
Section 21AA, not been enacted, has had hideous consequences. It's hog-tied to cultural practices and our rights have been ignored. We've been overrepresented in the courts and our physical and mental health has had major consequences. But not enacting 21AA, in my opinion, is inhumane. We have been systematically disempowered to conform. Our science, our ways have never been considered. Now, our resource is under great stress. 20% biomass means that 80% of the resource is gone. 70% of our reefs have been destroyed simply because of urchin barrens. We advocate for an Indigenous fishery. Thank you.
Wayne.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of issues running through my mind at the moment, and thank you everyone for voicing that those words that I that I really understand so well in regards of talking about my people, our saltwater people. Yeah, so I mean, I simply put it this way: in order to understand my people, my saltwater people, is that sitting from your office far away, that if you one day come and see what we do and live in our shoes one step at a time, is that you will understand the power of my people and the knowledge that we possess. If you take the moment to come and see, you will understand that we, the original people, the original caretakers of this beautiful place. It's not to say that all you beautiful people in this world cannot be the next caretakers. That it is very special, and my people know that as saltwater people, is that when we move around and in the water and on the land, how it makes us feel. It's a spiritual connection that not too many people will understand unless you have the full connection to country and understanding the full concept of that. Understanding country, you need to understand the living and the practice ways of using the natural materials available without the destruction, and it's happening all around us as we speak. The mining, our forests have been cut down, our waterways have been neglected day in and day out. For what is the power of your greed without understanding that the knowledge is simply passed through our people, and it's something that we share and something that we are good at. So the most important thing, in order to understand your ecosystems and the place and this beautiful place that we call home, Australia, is that we all can become caretakers of this beautiful place together as one. But we need to understand, and we know that it's not rocket science, that our beautiful First Nations people have protected and looked after this place from day dot. So my heart is on my sleeve, and I speak for my people all around this country who go through the same thing over and over, day in, day out. But we can make a change, and it only takes a split few minutes to go out and invite and introduce yourself to local people who are telling these stories. The knowledge and the wisdom is there for all of us to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, well, I can't say much more than what John said. John, on the commercial side of it sort of thing, because I've been a fisherman for about 58 years, and like I said, I was born a fisherman, I'll die a fisherman, but I'm not happy with the department and that, because they don't have meetings with us to find out any issues that we have with their rules and regulations and changes that they make. You know, like I was allowed to catch, going back about 6 years, I can go and catch 4, 5, 6, 7 tonne of garfish a year. So Fisheries changed the rules and regulations and said the 40 shares that I had for garfishing would only allow me now to catch 640 kilos of garfish. We've done shots for garfish with our net, and we've got up to like 3,000 kilos at times, and we've only supposed to take 640 kilos out of that and let the rest go. And if they die, because they die really quick, and if they're dead, and we've got to take them out to sea and dump them, and they wash up the beach, we're the ones that get the blame for it. So I think it's wrong that they should be telling us on what amount of fish we can catch and how much we can make off them. Same thing with lobsters and abalone. Like when my dad first died for abalone, we're not allowed to catch them. He was getting 6p a pound for them. So then when the rules and regulations change and that, and they become valuable, who missed out? All the Aboriginal people. And all the white fellas got it. Now, if I've got $1 million or $2 million, I'm not going to go and buy an abalone licence, am I? Because I don't need to. I don't even need to work. You know, but that's the way they changed it. They took lobsters off us because we missed out on a quota of lobsters because we were 17 kilos short on the criteria they set. Because we put in return forms to say what quantity of fish we caught and what type, you know. And then when they go through that's those returns, and they say, oh yeah, like, oh, Andrew and I, you know, he's only made this amount. Yeah, and then you know, he's only made this amount. So if we make the criteria say 600 kilos of lobsters, well, he missed out because he only got 75 or something like that. And that's the way they do it. And that's the way we've been chopped out of it. But we're also talking about our resource and that. And what gives them the rights to tell me that I can't go and make X amount of money out of this resource or that resource? And we've had a weekend closure that comes in on the 1st of November and ends on the end of February.
Andrew, the thing of it is with the fisheries management, they never took into consideration that we versified. Because remember, I was saying back again, we was a lobster fisherman, we was a salmon fishery, we was a mullet fishery, and we versified into the lakes and that, right?
Yeah.
And this came about, each share and everything of what we got came back to the seasons and everything, right? We got one good season, right? And say the lobster season come in and wasn't really good, we versified onto another thing. We looked after the resources. That's the way we managed our resources, and all Aboriginal people done this. But when fisheries management came in, they designed it on the fact that you must catch as much as you can on that one species. Now that, you have a look, has wiped out virtually our fishery. The fisheries management is not good for the Aboriginal people. It is good for making monies on the product, but it's not good for the resources tomorrow. Am I right, Andrew?
Yeah, right, John, yeah, because we'd go, like, I'm a beach fisherman, and I also prawn and that, but I don't do meshing in the rivers. But we'd go fishing of a morning time with our boats and nets, and if we didn't catch fish, say, by 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, we come home, we grab our diving gear, and we go and make our wages with lobsters. But we're not allowed to do that no more. Everything that's valuable to us, like abalone, lobsters, urchins and whatever, has all been taken off us. And all the non-Aboriginal fishermen have got it now. There's some like the abalone, the lobster fishermen. They've got probably about 3 or 4 of them got it all sewn up, you know, to themselves. And to me, that's wrong. Like, you know, we're talking about our resource, and we're not allowed to access it. And I feel like I shouldn't be paying fisheries. Like I owe the fisheries a fair bit of money, but I won't pay them. I'll declare myself bankrupt before I pay them. Anyway, but they won't stop us from fishing. You know, because I'm not going to go and pay them big money for me to access my resource. If they think they own the resource, like John says, let them show us proof of ownership. If you own something, you've got to be able to prove you own it. You know, and if they can't prove that they own the resource, why do they hassle us so much? You know, and the fish, the majority of the fish we catch are migrating fish. You know, we got these marine parks set up where the fish, they don't just come there and say, oh yeah, we're in a marine park now, let's stay there because it's safe here, they can't catch us. They don't do that. You know, they're migrating fish, so we should be allowed to fish on beaches that are closed by the marine parks and that, because they're there today and gone tomorrow. Like one day there, they opened up Churros River. That was on a Saturday, and we was down and watched them open it up. Well, on the Sunday, my young fellow was over Browleen. He rings me up and he says, Dad, he said, there's 2 good heaps of mullet going along Candlehagen Beach here. And he said, go down to Bale and Southern Headland, he said, and you'll see them. So I done that. And it was drizzling rain. This was on a weekend closure. It was drizzling rain. I went down there and he pulled up on the hill and he said, there they come now, Dad, because he can really see fish where there's none. Is that good? And then he said, there they come there now, look, Dad. So we watched them swim along that beach. That was on a Sunday afternoon. They swam along that beach, right up the shore, flat calm, not a single person on the beach. But there's probably $10,000 or $12,000 worth of fish there we had to watch just swim past us like that and not touch them. Now, no one pays us for that, because when the weekend closed, they brought the weekend closure in, it was supposed to be for the public. And I said, well, why was it brought in? You know, I said, because the interest of the public, they saved their money up all year, and they want to come down the south coast or the beach, sit on the beach on a chair with a rod and thrown in and a beer beside them. I said, yeah. I said, well, that's fine by me. I said, but when it comes through the week when we're allowed to fish, I said, all those people are still there. And I said, and the reason why the weekend closure was brought in, I said, it wasn't for the interest of the public. I said, that was because you guys don't want us fishing. And I said, because if there was for the interest of the public, I said, the school holidays don't start on the 20th of December. And I said, well, they go back late February, early January or something. I said, but the weekend closure comes in on the 1st of November and ends at the end of February. So we still have probably a couple of months of where we've still got the weekend closure. And we have meetings. We said, well, what about why aren't we allowed to fish in the afternoon time? Because daylight savings in, why can't we go fishing earlier at the break of day in the morning up until 9 o'clock? If we haven't got fish, we go home. I said, and then we can go back at, say, 6 o'clock in the afternoon and fish till dark and through the night. They won't come at nothing because they won't listen to anything you say to them. So I'm actually at the stage where this weekend closure comes in this year. I'm going to go and fish on the weekend, and if they want to come and book me, they can book me if they want to, but I will not pay them any money. But if it goes to court and I win, well, then I'm going to take them for everything they got, because I don't think they've got a right to tell me how to make a living. You know, I've been doing this for 58 years. Some of these blokes that come along and make these rules and regulations are not even 58 years old. You know? So to me, it's just everything they've done has made life hard on us. And zone, I don't like the idea we're zoned in. We can work from the Victorian border to a north end of Tabari Beach, that's south of Ulladulla. But then it sounds like we've got a big area, but when you look at it, we've got closures by Marine Park, National Park, Fisheries, Forestry, Council. We've probably got about 15 to 20% of beaches where we're allowed to go and fish. So all we want is we want our water back. We want to be able to go anywhere in New South Wales, like Ulladulla, Wreck Bay, for instance. My grandmother's family was the first ones to ever fish Wreck Bay. They made the road into Wreck Bay. I'd like to go up there and fish for whiting in the summertime. Not allowed up there because it's out of our zone, and it's wrong. So I'm at the stage, like, I don't care what fisheries want to do to me, but I'm at the stage where I'm going to go and push them boundaries, and I'm going to fish on the weekend. If there's $5,000 or $6,000 worth of fish there on the weekend, I'm going to catch them. If they want to find me, they can. I don't give two hoots. You know, there've got to be changes made somewhere, and the only way you can get changes done is if you push them, because they're not going to just hand nothing back to us. They've taken everything off us over the years, and not going to take no more. That's all I've got to say.
Thanks, Andrew. Kevin.
I'm the last one here, am I? Well, the gentleman around the table there explained most of the things that happened in my life, and I go right back to the early 60s. And my first encounter was fisheries in the late 60s, when probably we didn't have a hack then, it was a policeman. But anyhow, I can go right back further than that to when I first got thrown in the water, river out at Narragunda. My brother said, "Don't learn to swim," he said, "you won't be able to feed yourself later on." So I had to swim across a big blue hole and make dog paddle across, and I made it. And since then, I'll never forget that day. Then it went on from there to when I grew up. I didn't even know who I was at the time, you know. No education at school. Then we had to feed ourselves, and we had to go to the ocean and get abalone off the rocks and that sort of thing at a certain time of the year. They'd have the big tides, and the sand would come in and wash the abalone up in the dry rocks. And we used to pick them up with sticks, and there was millions and millions and millions of tons of them just sitting there. Until later on down in life, when I found out about it, that when I started the abalone industry, there's nothing left there whatsoever. You can jump in the water anywhere on the south east coast here I dive from right up the north coast, right through to the Victorian border. And there's nothing at all. You've got to put air tanks on and dive 70, 80 feet to get a feed. Now we can't get them off the rocks anymore like was traditionally done years and years ago, what I've been taught. So like the boys here said just about everything for me, and I appreciate that they're right behind me on this matter for the fisheries stuff. And I don't know whether I was the first bloke who went to jail in Australia in history, in Australia. I don't know. That was back in the 70s. I done 3 months in jail there for a fisheries offence for abalone. It was shucking abalone, undersized abalone, and over the bag limit, over the quota. So I done 3 months in jail for that. I wasn't going to pay no fines or nothing because I didn't need a licence. And since then, I just carried on from there and still do what I do, and I don't think anybody's going to stop me from doing what I'm doing today. Like my family fed me and brought me up on seafoods and freshwater stuff and that mullet and that. We used to swap and change, lobsters, go to town, lobsters for food, abalone for food, grocery places, all that sort of stuff. And they were quite willing to share with me, and they say, "Well, we want more, you know, get us that and we'll give you fruit and vegetables, you know, and meat and that. We used to go and swap stuff for meat and stuff, you know, get a feed." And we used to get plenty of abalone because they just pick them up off the rocks with sticks and that, you know. Never even dived in the water until the fishing industry started, and they virtually wiped the southeast coast of Australia out with abalone. You jump in the water today and you've got to go out past Montague Island, you know, and I can dive pretty good, but and they condemned me along the coast here because Fisheries even put a poster up down in Eden, and I had a couple of nephews and nieces working in the fisheries office, and they walking and seeing this big poster sitting up there, the most wanted man, this fellow here, Kevin Mason, the most wanted poacher on the southeast coast of Australia. And that blew them away. And they got photos of it. And I said, "What are they doing with me?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't give a bugger, you know. I'll just go and get me feed, you know, and feed me mob, which I've always done all my life. And I'm still doing it today. And I don't think anybody's going to stop me, governments or police or fisheries or whatever they call them, the authorities." Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your stories. I'm going to ask the committee members if they've got some questions, but if it's okay with the committee, I might just fire off. I've got one question, and probably Kevin, you might be able to assist me here. When fisheries turn up and they, I don't know, assess your abalone or your take, and they then give you a court attendance notice or a fine, do they take your equipment as well?
Exactly, yeah, took everything. Flippers, goggles, snorkels, my mask, my gloves, everything I had on me. One time they wanted to take my car, but I told them, I said, "It's not my motor car. I just borrowed it." They wanted to repossess that.
Yeah. And do you ever get your equipment back at any stage?
There was one time, no, I never ever, because I went to an auction one day down at in the Romeria, and they said all the stuff that's been gone through the fisheries that they collected, sort of thing, you know, or seized. I went down, here's my wetsuit hanging up there for sale. They had a for sale sign on it. My wetsuit and all my diving gear. So I didn't buy it. I asked them down there, I said, that's my gear there, you've taken away from me about 2 or 3 years ago. And they said, oh, mate, it'll cost you for this. Righto. I didn't go near that.
You didn't buy it back?
No.
Okay, righto. Thank you. I might start with Peter over here and we'll go around. Peter, have you got anything you would like to ask our...
Excuse me, Chair, just on that they're taking a gear, they've seized a car off me, personally, and I won it at a club in Shellharbour, right? And they seized it off me because I won it. I won the car in a raffle. And Fisheries was quite obliged of just saying, we're taking this off you, Mr. Nye.
Do they say why they're taking it?
They don't have to give a reason. They just do it.
Did you get your car back, or were you like Kevin, you found it at a...
Well, no, it's still I think still in compound.
Okay.
But how can they link that up with we've been classed as a mafia at one stage, a black mafia. You know, we're dealing with our own food sources. You know, we've been accused of drug trading. I don't even know what fucking drugs, sort of fucking heroin or fucking ice. I've never seen the shit. You know? And these are the sort of things that the Fisheries and the Crown and the DPI is really shoving down our throats.
Yep.
How much, you know, again, how much longer do we have to put up with it for?
Yep. Okay.
Just on that, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Fisheries seized Keith's car because they thought it, even though, you know, there's plenty of evidence around the place that it wasn't so, they thought it was gained by illegal methods.
Okay, yep.
So, you know, and despite some of the evidence that's been given to court, they still won't relinquish on that.
Getting on the Abalone Association, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
Going back to the Abalone Association, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is they're a virtue of government by themselves. You know, there was a evidence coming out saying when COVID came in, you know, they were allowed 100 tonne or something a year, right? Anyway, they had 6 months. They had 6 months of COVID off, right, because of the lockdown. Our beautiful DPI organisation has awarded the Abalone Association divers their full quota for the year when COVID lifted and their quota that they missed out on that 6 months. Now, here's my brother and John doesn't get their quota in that 1 year. The DPI doesn't come and say, oh, Mr. Nye, Mr. Briley, you missed out last year. You're going to double up this year, right? But they said that to the Abalone Association. It might be worthwhile checking in.
Yep.
You know?
Okay.
How wrong is it?
Keith was saying, though, is true about that, because we're allowed 460 kilos of garfish. Well, we haven't caught garfish like in 3 years. But I said to Fisheries, I said, can that, now we haven't caught garfish in 3 years, can that 460 kilos
600.
carry over because we haven't caught any for 3 years? Can that, we get 3 times that amount? They said, no, you can't do that. But I'm going to do it.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Peter, have you got some questions you would like to pose to our panel?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions, because it's clear that you've outlined that this is having extreme generational impacts on one generation to the next. So, and the prosecutions continue, and the fishing stocks remain depleted. So I guess my question is, what suggestions do you have to ensure that we have sustainable fishing and opportunities for both current generations and well and truly into the future, so you can actually be able to transfer your traditions onto your children's children.
What if I just comment on that? The word sustainable, at this point in time, we're looking at 20% biomass. And within that 20% biomass, it's probably even less than that. It probably goes down to 15%. When we're looking at global warming and ocean currents warming up, I've got a feeling there's no shock absorber there to actually keep the resource sustainable. From an Indigenous perspective, 80% of the biomass which is gone is, I wouldn't classify that as a sustainable level at 20%, even though you move from 20%, go up a bit and then take the resource and it comes back down to 20% again. It doesn't allow any wiggle room at all. So the way I look at it is that you're far better off actually having an Indigenous fishery which can actually, I suppose, have cultural ways in using the resource in another way rather than what has been done over the last 50 years. Because at this point in time, it's not really showing good signs of management.
Danny's got his hand up.
Look, thanks very much for that question. It's a really good question. And it's something we've been asking everyone about why the sustainability of fisheries. Because when we were here, when we were managing it, it's fine. So what happened? Why are we in a position now where the stocks are declining? And it's a pretty bleak outlook. And they're now trying to fit an Aboriginal fisheries into that bleak outlook. We didn't do this. We didn't do this. It's fisheries and the way they manage the stocks. They over-allocated the resources, and they did that in a way that it benefited few people. And they continue to do that. I'll give you an example. In the abalone industry, they issue licenses and shares for 100,000 kilos a year. I might have got that wrong, but it's an enormous amount of abalone each year. And go back to Phantom sitting there. He got prosecuted. He had to go to court for getting 3 kilo. Put him through hell over 8 years for doing that. And yet these people in fisheries are saying to you, look, we can't fit an Aboriginal fisheries into here because it's over-allocated, it's over-resourced, and the resources are going to decline. But they have done this. They have done it to us. They've done it to you. They've put you in a bad position where you're going to have to come out here and explain to us and ask questions like you just asked. How are we going to fit you in there? It's not that question you shouldn't be asking to us. You should be asking to fisheries, how are we going to make this sustainable to fit black fellas into fisheries? What do we need to do to give these people a right and stop prosecuting us? Prosecution is not a way to manage fisheries for us. So, with respect to everyone around here who'll probably ask that question, and it's a really good question, and I appreciate it, but it's not a question you should direct to us. The question is directed to fisheries about that, and they have to answer that question. Parliament has already said very clearly that there is an Aboriginal fisheries into the Fisheries Management Act. there is a section there called Section 21AA that will give protection to Aboriginal people who practice their cultural fishing. And just one other thing on cultural fishing, when we say to you cultural fishing, we say that to you because we think that you can only understand cultural fishing. You know, that's the best way we can say to describe to a white fella cultural fishing, but it's not. It's our fishing. It's our life. It's our life. We say cultural fishing so that you can put it in a box, you know, and create fences around that to make, but it's not that. You know, we've got to be able to find a better language to communicate to you about what we feel. And I hope some of the stories that you've heard around here will help break down that barrier. Now, you will hear also, Fisheries have been telling people around the place and in media around the place that they have to crack down on Aboriginal fishing down here on the coast because it's linked to the drug trade. And one way to shut you fellas up is to say it's linked to the drug trade, and that actually nails you to the floor because you can't move on that. Because if you do, you say, no, let's commence Section 21AA. Then there's evidence that goes to the court to say, hang on a minute, these black fellas are up there trading abalone for drugs. Then you think you're in the fire. I can tell you categorically right here and now, with my hand on heart, and everyone around this table will tell you that that is not true. It's a tactic used by Fisheries to scare the shit out of yous. Dirty tactic. That, you know, and like I said before earlier about blowing smoke up your ass, that's what it's all about with them. They're not about to tell you the right stories. You got to ask them the question. When they tell you, we're reviewing prosecutions. Oh, all right. Well, show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that you're reviewing. How many people have you dropped? Where is the greater good for prosecuting a 20-year-old person down here for fishing, stapling the criminal charges on his forehead for the rest of his life? Like my kids, for example, my two boys were taught how to dive, how to fish. You know, they grew up with the nice side of it. They grew up with our side of it as well. So they're pretty well versed inside of the fisheries and all that stuff. They were prosecuted to the point where they couldn't practice their cultural fishing anymore. My first son has got $15,000 fine mounted up on him. My second son got $10,000 fine. My first son's still paying that off. They couldn't get a driver's license. They couldn't get a job. They couldn't, you know, all of they're criminal charges. You know, these are serious, serious things that stop our kids from developing. You know, please don't ask that question to us, but it's not a question for us. It's a question for Fisheries. Thank you, Chair.
So I've got John, and then I've got Kayleen, and then Keith.
Honourable Peter, you're Perlos brothers from Illawarra. You've got a fishery.
I wish I was related, but I'm not.
You're not related.
I missed out.
Well, I seen the name there, and I said, Illawarra, you're a pretty good fish buyer, all right? Anyway, Peter, coming back to your question is that have you any idea about the fisheries, or are you just asking the question for a start? in the fishing industry with the resources and everything, and I know a fair bit about the resources and managing resources. The question of it is that you put us all us Aboriginals together to go fishing, we wouldn't be getting 1% of the quota was taken out of the industry, right? In the other system, the white man system, right, you've got trawlers who must generate a massive amount of fuel bill a day for them to go to work. And what does that mean? They've got to catch a lot of fish to go, right? And in the abalone industry, right, everyone's talking about abalone, but abalone is an important thing for us Aboriginal people of this country. Yes, it is one of our main resources. That's our resources, but it's been stolen from us. You take that and the amount of money it could generate for us, and the resources of that is that it's been bleeded to a degree that it is virtually extinct, right? Now, you go back a couple of years ago, even on that, there was a virus that escaped from Port Stephens at the university, the thing there. It was called herpes. It virtually wiped out the whole industry, the abalone industry. It wasn't caused by anybody else or brought in by a thing. It was caused by fisheries researchers, right? And now they got it back to roughly, 100 tonne a year, right? Now, how many fisheries, how many fishers in that industry today that operates in that quota, right? And how many Aboriginal fishers in that? Now, the fisheries, in the time when they gave out the licences for that time, they're supposed to have been 13 licences come to an Aboriginal families up and down this coast. What'd they do? They gave it to the biggest crook in New South Wales, just because he was a preacher, and his son's got a couple of licences out of it, and it was handed back. Now, that's not his fault. That was fisheries' fault by giving him the licence to hand out. The fisheries knew who the divers was, right? Because we put in returns and everything at that time. They should have approached us and gave us the licences. And that quota, their system now, they wouldn't be getting, if there's 100 divers, I don't think there is that many, right? They'd be, instead of getting 10 tonne, they're getting a couple of tonne. And how much is abalone? $100 a kilo? How much do they make a year? What is their expenses? What's our expenses? Our expenses is starvation, because we have not got a fishery to work. The other people, right, the trawlers and everything, they got X amount of money, they got all the high price fish tied up in the industry, right? And it's coming back to that their trawlers, when they hit the fish, they virtually wipe out a season. For a start, when the first seine nets came into the tuna industry here, right, they had pole boats. For years and years, we had a beautiful fishery. Within 2 years or 3 years of a first seine boats coming here, it was completely wiped out, extinct. They had to stop the tuna from being caught all over the world for it to get back, because it killed virtually the industry. Right? Exactly the same thing as what they're doing now. I don't know if they're working by day or they're working by quota, but quota in the fishing industry is, if you go out there, just like Andrew has said, he goes out and he shoots his net, he's allowed to take 640 kilos, but he gets 3 tonne. What happens to the 2.5 tonne? It's on the bottom of the ocean out there. Every day they go to work, it's on the bottom of the ocean. And what's happened in England and their boats, they go to sea, they go out for 3 days, catch what they can, they bring the lot home. There's no waste. In Australia, right, it's dead. Exactly the same with the pilchards. That was happened over there. They disease they brought in on pilchards when they feed in the tuna, when they brought them in to the pond, that their nets, right? The disease got away and it came right around Australia, virtually wiped out all pilchards. Up there at the prawn season up on the north coast, there they were 6 feet deep. Right? That's the quote. That's the resources. It's gone down the drain, and you're asking for things. And we, as an Aboriginal fishery, we'd be lucky to take 1%. So how do you ask the question of ours is going to sustain, right? But you've got to remember this. If it's quota they're going to work offer, and I don't like quota for a start because we can't even make money out of our fishing industry, and I've been here for X generations because of quota, right? Because we never got no quota. But the thing of it is, if it's quota, then they've got to start sharing with us people, start taking the percentages off the other fishermen, right? That's where they fit us in, because that resource belongs to us, and if they're going to get along with us in that, what's that word for it? Generation gap, the generation gap, closing the gap. If you're going to get along with closing the gap, well, don't they got to share? Because we own it. We shared with all them. Actually, we never shared with them. They took the whole lot right from us and left us now to collect the scraps. To collect the scraps of what we got to do to make a living and look after our resources. And when you talk about resources, looking after resources, up the top end up there, there was a reef up there was just about dead. They put the Aboriginal people in charge of that, and that was the rangers up there on the reef. Within 2 years, it was thriving. They brought it back to life. Look it up. You don't have to take my word for it. Look it up. Everything's there in black and white. I talk the truth. I don't lie to anyone. Right? Everything that we say here is the truth. And I won't go back to a courthouse, because a courthouse is just a load of crap. It's a completely, it's a mafia system. The law is the mafia system. It's not our law. It's a mafia system, because it only protects the criminals. Right? So I say, to get back to the Aboriginal fishery, start taking it off the rich people who took all our shares.
If I could, we went through that court case down the room. We went through that court case down the room. 11 of us, going for our fishing rights and things like that. And when we was run through it there, only one at a time was allowed in and give his evidence, and the other one weren't allowed to, or give his evidence, weren't allowed to go in and listen in. But at the end of the day, when it come down to the final say by the two, by our barrister and the prosecutor, and the prosecutor had his say. The judge sat up there with his arms folded like that, took notice of everything that was said by the Crown prosecutor. When our barrister got up there to have his say, he turned around sideways looked up at the ceiling and looked away like that. He was not interested in one little bit on what our barrister had to say. You know, and people come out of that courtroom, non-Aboriginal people came out of that courtroom and said, you've got no chance of winning there.
Yeah, Sam, but like I know a little bit about this, right? Because we are behind the 8 ball before we even go into the court, right? We go and hire a solicitor to do our talking for us, right? The Crown solicitor, he belongs to the bar. The solicitor that you hire belongs to the bar. The judge sitting on the bench belongs to the bar. And what is the bar? The bar is the Crown. So how the hell that we going to get any justice when you are governed by the Crown? The Crown is the one that prosecuted us.
Can I, sorry, Taylor, very quickly, but then we'll go to Kayleen.
Okay, I just, very quickly, I think there's a bit of missing context here to something we've discussed in the last 10 or 15 minutes. My colleague, Mr. Poulos, and I were having a discussion when we were down at Mystery Bay earlier this morning. And as Kevin said in his his recollection of his upbringing earlier, talking about the ability to find what you needed not too far from the shore, and now you might have to dive down further down. And as I say, my colleague and I were having a discussion down at the beach with Mr. Mason's daughter, I think it was, and Robert as well. And we're talking about how sad it was that, you know, what was there only decades ago is no longer there. And Robert, we started talking about how do you get this back? So if I can, I might rephrase Mr. Paul's question, which is to say, and I'll preface by saying I don't think anyone in this room is a part of the problem, but rather the knowledge.
What you're asking is how would you get it back, get the resource back?
That's what I'm basically saying, is how do we bring it back from where it is at the
okay, I do.
I promised Kayleen she would.
That's all right.
You're right? Okay.
Go.
Okay, sorry. So
Well, I do have a thing to say on that, because not very long ago I was in New Zealand, right? I was called over there for a conference. And what they done over there was that the Maoris, they own half of the fishery. They probably own more now, right? And in that area of the Maoris one, they closed it down. Closed a big area down on that, and the Maori was the only one that could go dive on that area, right? And you dive in the water over there and you have a look. I've seen the photos and everything on it, right? There's not enough room for an abalone to move around. There's that many. And it was virtually the same as Australia, right? So in the situation is that you have in the Australia situation is that each spot of abalone, it's not the same. It is the same kind of species, but the genetics of it is completely different, right? So therefore, you got to look after each individual area at the same time. So if you're going to bring it back, you've got to look at where, and a lot of us Aboriginals or original owners of this place know exactly where they come back quick, right? And virtually what you got to do, that if it's a big area, you've got to look after that for a few years. It don't take long for them to come back, right? Just for a couple of years, and it'll be thick as ever, right? Because I know I've been diving and everyone else has been diving in the situation, and you go away from it and you come back there, it's self-replenishing. What it is, it's a renewable source. This is the thing that everyone's saying. How is it going to come back? Well, it's a renewable source, and being in the wild, it populates very quick. It's got to grow quick to be to survive. And
Could I just, I suppose, put this in a nutshell? We need an Indigenous fishery. We need an Indigenous fishery. The reason why we need an Indigenous fishery is so that we, I suppose, don't act like the commercial ventures which are going on, or the rec ventures. We're an actual Aboriginal fishery, which comes from a cultural perspective. That's all. Thank you.
because the thing of it is that what I find with my knowledge and everything of years of fishing, right? I've listened to the amateur group saying how long does the species take to grow. Actually, when we catch fish, we measure the size of it. Well, we know the size of it because we, if it's undersized and everything. And what we found out is nothing like what the other groups telling us, like fisheries researchers and that, what they're saying. Being experimenting with the product and everything, it grows enormously quick. And in the ocean-wise with the lobsters and everything, and I've been a lobster potter and everything, and we've marked our lobsters and we let them go undersized. And we were still catching those lobsters, and they was from undersized lobster. They was over half a kilo lobster when we caught them next, and that was before they left the shore to go to sea. And they go out to the shelf and down the trench up there, and the only place you find those lobsters here is up at Newcastle, because that's the only place they got berries. Right, that's the egg. So these lobsters here, they travel up there, right? So as been fishing for a long time with each fishery and the resources that we take, well, I took notice of the growth rate, and to replenish our area is. All you'd have to do is be exactly like us original owners, diversify in the industry, and in no time our industry will come back. And I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, John.
Okay, can we now? I've got Kayleen, and then Keith still busting to have a say.
So just to articulate back to your question, I think it comes back to government's conditioning of your mindset of how you address issues. As we know, policy arises from the latest symptom of what the issue is in community, but we never really are addressing the cause. And so reverting back to my speech at the start, is you're looking at the depletion of resources. You can hear from the panel here around the transient migration of sea, but within the parameters of the legislation in your marine areas, it doesn't allow or reflect that. In all your environmental reports and reviews, it demonstrates that Aboriginal people have been transient forever. However, the Fishing Act or legislation that you're reviewing doesn't reflect that protocol system. I also, looking at the trade and commercial review, I think it really pins back to commercial use and the values of those people. We can see from Aboriginal people's protocols and systems that our values really underpin our commitment to the preservation of the environment. Non-Indigenous people look at conservation, so that's just preserving an element of the environment. We see that with the Great Barrier Reef. You're just looking at one component. Aboriginal people look at all areas and how they integrate and how they work together. And until you can change your mindset around how you're approaching legislation, you're still going to have the same desired outcome. And I think just acknowledging the isolation that fishing is not an isolated issue, that it's connected to other environmental factors, connected to the well-being of the Aboriginal people. And I really would suggest that you look at the methodology and the foundation of your approach to these issues, because that, without looking at your methodology, you're still going to have the same outcome that we continue to have this conversation, not now, but 20 years into the future.
Okay, Andrew, but we've got Keith who's, so Keith and then Andrew.
I'm holding him. He'll let me go first.
Okay, is that right? You know, he's
got the floor.
Well, I'm not going to intervene in that one. You got.
I'll stop. That was Mrs. calling me. Yeah, no. What I'd like to say is with about our fishing and our culture, like we were fishing down at Bingy. We always called it Bingy, but it's called really Mullumborough Point. And we had a patch of salmon down there, and my son was there. He had a fishing licence at the time, but he didn't have the endorsements and that. And Fisheries sat up on the hill and watched and watched and watched, and then me and my son went up and had to talk to him, and nothing was coming out of it, sort of thing. And then, like 2 years down the track, a week before 2 years was up, we was talking to the Fisheries on Barling's Beach there, and they said to Craig, you know, within a week you'll have a court appearance notice for that incident down at Mullumborough Point. So, because after 2 years they couldn't have done nothing about it, but they waited exactly 1 week before the time was up. And anyway, he went to court over it, and the judge acknowledged his culture. He said, Mr. Nye, he said, I acknowledge your culture, but culture's got nothing to do with this. He fined him $11,500 for practising his culture on the beach that day, and going by his court appearance papers, the judge, they were saying that he used the net, he caught the fish, he rowed the boat, he done this, he done that. No one else was involved in all this, according to them, because no one else was mentioned. They said you carried the fish to Bermagui, and he was, you know, like an inch from going to jail, you know, for practising his culture, and he's still paying off for that fine too. You know, so I've got to pay. I got some piece of paper at home there because I saved a lot of it, and it's got the rules and regulations on it from the Fisheries, stating, you know, you cannot do this, blah blah blah. You cannot do this, you cannot do that, and so on and so on. But right down on the bottom, it says this clause does not apply to taking fish with the use of a seine net. But in the where it said seine net, it was in brackets, but it had prawn seine net, and our net is a beach hauling seine net. Even though the Fisheries call it a general purpose hauling net, it is a general purpose seine net, and that's where it gets pulled by hand back to the shore, and the trawlers have a seine net, but theirs get winched back to the boat. Yeah, so those rules and regulations did not apply to that, and I didn't find that out till way over, like years and years down the track. And, you know, so he should have never been fined in the first place, because those rules do not apply to taking the fish with the use of a seine net. And I mentioned the Fisheries at different meetings that I was away, even with John. I'd have to talk to him in a little interview, and I'd say, well, you know, even though you call our net a general purpose hauling net, actually it is a seine net. And they said, yeah, that's right. And I said, okay, yeah, that's fine, yeah. And I never mentioned them why, you know, but he's still paying off for that. So, you know, I don't know, we can't do nothing about it because it was over 3 years. Same thing with our wassail. Like, I was called Andrew Nye, his immediate family are nothing but poachers and thieves of a precious seafood in abalone. Now, when they said Andrew Nye, his immediate family, that's with my kids, my grandkids, my mother, and so on. You know, my mother never died for abalone. You know, but he said we was poachers and thieves, and like Keith said, we was classed as mafia. I've never ever smoked or drank in my life, and I'm 72 years old, and I've never ever touched it. So where did you get off saying that? Yeah.
Okay, now we've got about half an hour before we...
Now, right, I'll make this one quick.
So we've got Keith, and then I'm going to ask Peter if he's got any questions, and then we're going to start working towards this wrapping up. So, Keith?
Well, going back to Your Honour Peter over here, I was lucky enough to actually have a word to a gentleman by the name of Dugan Saunders. Do we know who he is?
Minister.
Right. I was lucky enough to have a yarn with Dugan Saunders up at Cooma about 2 weeks ago, a private little conversation, and asked him about Section 211. No answer for me, right? Now, also, Dugan said to me at the time, he said, oh, you're allowed to do this and to do that, ain't you? He said, no, I'm allowed 10 abalone. And he's talking about himself. He's talking about himself. He's allowed 10 abalone. Now, here we have a minister for DPI telling himself he's allowed 10 abalone. So he must be an Indigenous person, is he? He's not. Right, now here's we got the DPI signing off for all these fisheries matters, which knows nothing about what he's signing off for. That's what that told me. And getting back to the state of Pete, with the question you asked, how do we get it back, and goodness knows what. Now, I don't know how many people took any notice of the bushfire that we had, the disaster, the catastrophe we had in 2020, right, 2019, 2020. Now, how do we think that got out of hand in the first place, that fire? The whole southeast coast of this beautiful coast, as Wayne says. How did that get out of control? By our managers. And who is our managers? At the moment, who's above us? Us Indigenous people here. Who's above us? The LAW is above us. Right? That's the only way I went against, me and my boys, to kill that fire that never killed our houses. But saying that, that fire was allowed to do what it'd done, ravish the whole southeast coast. To what expense? To our ocean, to our lands. Where does all the emblems go? Where does it all go? We haven't even got a brain. The people that control this country has not even got a brain to think what damage that caused to our ocean, to our creeks, to our human health, as this young girl over here says, right? And she knows, because she does get the complaints. Where does it get off? You know, I'll go back to it again. Where does our so-called, they're not my boss, but unfortunately I am bound by the law, but they are not my boss, because they have no idea about running a country. And on top of that, I am the same man as in 20 prime ministers in this country. I am the same man, and not one of those prime ministers have done anything totally for Aboriginal people. To ask for an opinion, how we should do this and how we should do that. Our cultural burning, simple, but was never allowed to be in practice for 29 years. That was only in the part of our little town at Mogo. 29 years the Aboriginal people weren't allowed to practice their culture. That was a disaster by itself. But again, it all goes back to that ocean, Pete. It all goes back to that ocean, mate. And the debris that went into that ocean, and the fish and the shellfish that caused in the ocean alone and the estuaries. Yes. And even the poison, they put these fires out with. But our practice of our looking after Mother Earth is so simple and non-effective to the rest of our culture and our resources. It's just simple. I had a what's known down at I had a meeting with a gentleman down at Eden, and I was over prawns. And I'm sorry for swearing, because I tell you what, I am a very, very frustrated man against the LAW, because it's so simple just to ask. As Wayne said, come and sit down with us. It takes 2 minutes. Have a cup of tea. It might only be one question you want to ask that gentleman. Any one of these people are sitting here want to talk about anything. 3 minutes. 3 minutes to just say, geez, well, that might work or it won't work. That might work. Let's give it a go. We are denied from that opportunity as an Aboriginal people of this land. This is why this is so frustrating. You know, I'm looking at jail. I'm looking at jail next week. Yeah, I'm going back again for the same purpose I'd done in 2012. And on top of that, I faced a judge at Bega District Court and he had all intention of jailing me. And he told me to my face when I was in the chair, the witness box. He said, Mr. Nye, he said, I'm aware of your family. I'm aware of your family. He said, I'm aware of your history and your culture. And he said straight to me, he said, Mr. Nye, he said, you should have had your culture drummed out of your thick skull many years ago. How do I swallow that? Why should I have faith in the law?
So we'll go to Peter, and then I'll just remind people we're getting really close to wrapping this up. So, Peter.
Just say that I'm just gobsmacked by that.
Yeah.
Well, how do I swallow it? How do I swallow it, Pete?
You shouldn't have to.
I shouldn't have, and a judge is there to judge. The judge is there to judge a law. How does he know my culture? And saying that in the court, in his house, saying that to a person on his land. I have to swallow that, and I've got to live with that because I can't kick him in the fucking arse.
3 questions to people here. Firstly, is there anyone here who doesn't support the commencement of the Fisheries Amendment Act 2009?
Very quickly.
The Act that has that section 21AA in it, where the inquiry is about, is there anyone who doesn't support that section of the Act commencing, actually becoming into law?
Could I just say, I support it, but without being regulated.
Without being regulated. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's a very important point.
Yep.
Can you think, leaving aside the nonsense about drugs and all that sort of stuff and now the hearsay, can anyone here tell me any genuine reasons why that they've heard why it shouldn't commence?
My reason for that, Your Honour, Pete. My reason of my belief would be because they bluntly just don't want to acknowledge our culture and our rights and our respect of Mother Earth and our waters. They don't want to be shamed out. We stay as one. We stay as one. I am the same man in front of... I am the same man of birth. And they've faced 20 Prime Ministers. Are they the same man as I am? I can tell you, no.
Just to make clear, can I just...
Yep.
What I'm saying is that, are there any genuine reasons why you think it shouldn't commence?
Okay, so we've got John.
Look, this is a very touchy thing what I'm going to say here, and you probably mightn't like it. But in this situation, it's that the under the law and everything that I came through to learn and everything to where the position that I'm put in, is that the government is a private corporation registered in America. And being a corporation, it is designed wholly and solely to make monies. And I'm afraid to say the court system is a major thing in to make monies. And the way I see it is that the original people of this country, they're like a milking cow. They're being milked. And that's why they keep coming back to the same situation, is that we always end up in court. If it comes down to the real law and everything, they would look at it and say, well, these blokes is equal to the lot of us, because there was 2 million people walked across Sydney Harbour Bridge in support of us people. But the government needs money. Why the corporation is to get away from from government being there to help people, and it's wholly designed of American situation to make money, and that's why that Prime Minister a long time ago brought a corporation into it.
Annie?
Yeah, look, I haven't been told this to my face, but I've been told through other people that interacted with the government, particularly you parliamentarians. You might have heard this in estimates. And that is that Fisheries is worried about commencing Section 21AA because they've got an alternative method to insert an Aboriginal fisheries. And that is they want to do local management plans. And they said that they've got two local management plans that's already in place. That's one in Port Macquarie and one in Tweedheads. Well, the truth behind that is and you may ask them this, and I hope you do, show me the evidence. Show me where people have signed off on this and show me where the government has signed off. That's the first thing. Second thing, what you might like to ask them is the local management plans are not subject to legislation. Section 21AA is legislative. It has been assented to. It's just waiting for a commencement date. Now, look, just saying that very quickly, that doesn't mean much, you know. So, all right, well, just waiting. But you've been waiting now for 12 years. 12 years where Fisheries has been actually shitting on the Parliament and scaring the hell out of yous about Aboriginal fishing. They're frustrating us, no end. They're destroying our family. They're destroying our well-being. They are dragging us before the courts. And they're just making life absolutely miserable for us. You know? And thank you very much for coming down here, for taking the time. Every one of us want to do that, because it's very easy to legislate and to do things without coming and hearing and seeing what has affected people. And it took a fair amount of time for us to trust yous again. We are putting trust in yous to find some justice and to find a way to make democracy work in this country, to make democracy work in New South Wales, make the Parliament mean what it says. You people, you might not know this now, but I'll tell you now, and I want to weigh you up on this before I leave here today. Without you finding that Section 21AA needs to be commenced, you won't save us. We're looking for some people to save us. The court is not going to save us. All the goodwill of all the people around the place who take their time to give us their time to go to court on a pro bono basis, people that, you know, does stuff for nothing for us to seek justice in this place. You know, those are the ones that, you know, have held us up. So we're asking you to save us, please.
Eddie said you had one more.
You've got 7 days to do it.
Yeah, we're working on the clock here. Very quickly, I'll get Peter to ask his last one.
And well, it's just that the final question was just to confirm that people here would wish this committee to actually say that section should commence.
And that's what Danny said.
Yeah. And that's what you've just said.
Yep.
Without restriction.
Yep. And so, John, you had something you wanted to say?
Thing I've got written down here. Just something that I wrote down here, and we put it into for me to come on here at short notice, is no support for younger generation to continue the fishing in the commercial industry. Protect prosecutions on Aboriginal culture fisheries, not knowing the law on natives. The law fails our people. in particular our young men, which lead to depression and suicide, fear of going to jail for their access to their resources. Now that was the main one here too, because the thing of it is, a lot of the young fellas, like in my family, I've lost two of my family by hanging in the last 2 weeks. One was a diver. Two of them was a diver, and this could have had some cause to their hanging, and that's not just one. That's only my family alone. And you got to remember, right? These are people that survived the massacre of their people, to have one man standing, to have people like me sitting here talking to you, and they're descendants from that one man, right? And it's still going on, right? And like I said, we deserve better than what you guys are giving us. We're fighting like hell, but there's only 75,000 of us left in Australia. And we might go down, but we're going to give it the best shot that we can to survive. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else? Kevin, do you want to wrap up for us? You want to say? You leave it there? Okay. Righto. Douglas, you all good? Well, thank you for attending the roundtable, and Danny, I accept sort of your thank you to the committee for coming down. I can say this, Mark Banasiak, the chair, when this committee was constituted in the House, he made it very clear to the committee that we would be coming to the South Coast. There was no way that we would have this inquiry with Mark as a chair not to be here. So he's actually missing out today is pretty painful for Mark, I'd suggest. He really did want to be here. So just so you know, we were coming here regardless. We also, on behalf of the committee, we appreciate the time that people have taken to put in submissions and the time you've taken to be here today and convey your stories. You know, some of them are, as I think as Peter might have indicated a bit earlier with Keith, like some of the stuff is clearly pretty painful, and just trying to get your head around, for me, just trying to get my head around how some of this has played out for you people is just, I'm still trying to work that out.
Genocide.
Yeah, so we're going to be having a hearing in Sydney in August. We will have the department in front of us at that inquiry. So Danny, a lot of the questions you posed here, the committee members will take forward and will pose to the department there as well. So they will be under oath in front of us in August.
I'll be at that one.
You'll be there? Okay. Well, that'll be good. We're going to collect more information for this inquiry at that hearing, but also if you leave here today and you think, I should have said this, or I don't think they quite understood what I was saying, please get in touch with the Secretariat and take the opportunity to provide more information. This doesn't end here. You've got the opportunity to, if you think there is more, please tell us. Please tell us. And the Secretariat will be the place to do that. After we prepare a report to provide to government, it'll have recommendations in the report, and the government get a period of time upon which to respond to this committee's recommendations, the report, and that goes back to the Parliament for consideration. So there's still a way to go, I guess, for this committee, but what I'm saying is don't think it ends here. Like, you've got more information. If you think I should have said something and I didn't, take the time, get back in touch with us. Can I say, Robert, today out at Mystery Bay was, for me, quite moving. I just want to again thank you and Nigel and everyone else for providing us with that today. That was quite valuable for me, and I think on behalf of the other committee members it was quite valuable. And thank you all to everyone else for coming today.